Okay, Chapter 6, Communication. When I was working on my dissertation on cohort learning, which are groups of people who go through a sequence of learning opportunities, usually coursework, go through a degree together, through the entire program together, I had developed a model that at the very base started with trust, but the next level was communication, and that after that was collaboration. And I would suggest that really, rather than maybe a step model, that's more of a triangular, circular model where trust is built by communication. And the more that we communicate and communicate openly, the more that we trust. And the more that we trust, the more we communicate openly. So you see that that's just more of an engine, that trust, communication, and then collaboration ends up being actually an outcome. And we've talked already, and you've started to see already how important collaboration can be. We talked about cooperation versus competition. And actually, I would suggest that when we are collaborating effectively, that cooperation and competitiveness are both in the room. Both of those things get us to be good collaborators. Fundamental to that is the talent for listening, which Levy doesn't really get into as much as I wish he would. He does mention it a little bit in this chapter, but it is a skill that actually it's a courtesy, and courtesy is certainly a good thing, and especially in today's climate, I would suggest. But listening is something that's really critical to good communication. If I'm doing most of the talking, then I'm not doing very much listening. And without listening, I'm not going to get any smarter than I already am. And one thing about teams, and especially teams on projects, is that learning is a critical component to success. And so I've got to just make that comment about listening and move on. He talks about both masculine and feminine communication styles. But it is even broader than that. Maybe some of you have been fortunate enough to go through a DISC assessment, which is a behavioral communications profile. There are 4 basic types with combinations thereof. And so the whole communication style thing even transcends gender. I was talking about listening. In my experience, I would suggest that women are more prone to be listeners than us guys are. But even that, there are differences that are important to note. It's important to get to understand somebody's communication style. What are their motives when they're communicating? Goes back to the listening thing I mentioned, that if they understand that one of your primary motives is to listen, then people are probably going to talk to you more, and you're going to have a higher level of trust with them. Don't forget there's another interesting assessment on 118 through page 121, so please incorporate that in your discussions. It talks about one of the key things about communications is the feeling of psychological safety. And so we're to create an environment, and this is everybody's got to pitch in on this, and listening helps with this. An atmosphere of psychological safety where people don't fear that what they say is going to be held against them, used against them, get mocked or belittled because of the ideas that you have. We really need, if we're going to collaborate well, we need communication. A spirit of communication that has its roots in a foundation of psychological safety. Absolutely critical. And if you just pause a second, you're gonna recall situations where you did not feel safe voicing your opinion or challenging others. Another important, that's part of that competitive versus cooperative thing, where we challenge each other's comments or ask for, well, okay, I get what you're saying, but what is that based on? Help me understand your intellectual framework for this idea that you're putting out there, because at this point I'm not sure I understand it. One last thing two things I wanted to comment, sorry. One is about emotional intelligence. I would recommend to you a book called EQ 2.0. I'm in the transitional stage getting my office put back together, so I'm not exactly sure where that book is, or I'd hold it up for you. Travis Bradberry is one of the authors. I think it's less than $20, and it comes with a code that you can go out and take an assessment. Could be one of the most important things you do for yourself in your career, is really getting grounded in emotional intelligence. And it shows you it talks about the four components: self-awareness. Actually, it's self-awareness, self-management, and on and on. But I'd ask you to really take a close look at that. The other one is team meetings. And I know, I hear you groaning. Nobody seems to like meetings. Well, the reason they don't like meetings is because we tend to not get much done. And the reason we don't tend to get much done is because we don't run them well. Good meetings can be productive. They can be even enjoyable. But in terms of teamwork, good effective meetings are a must-have. So pay attention to what Levy's got to say about that, and have a good week.